The scream reached the rooftop before Shiley did. She came through the service door in heels she did not slow down for, and what she found was a 12-year-old boy kneeling on wet tile with both arms around her daughter, and her daughter's face pressed into his shoulder, and water running off the two of them into the drain. "Get your hands off her!" Julian let go so fast that his palms came up into the air, open, the way a man puts his hands up at a traffic stop. "Sorry, ma'am. Sorry. Look at his shoes." Shiley said it to the two guests frozen by the towel rack, and to the waiter holding a tray he had forgotten he was holding. "Look at them. That is what was touching you." Emily was coughing pool water onto the tile in long, ugly heaves, both hands flat on the ground to keep the roof from tipping. "He didn't hurt me," she said. "He saved me." She said it at the volume of a woman who had been underwater 90 seconds earlier, which was no volume at all. The waiter did not hear it. The guests did not hear it. Her mother was still talking. Elder Jason stood by the door in white gloves with his hands at his sides. He had been on that roof for 4 minutes. He had seen every second of it. Shiley turned on him. You work here. Tell them what you saw." Alejandra had the paper squared up on the table before Julian was awake enough to sit down at it, laid out flat in front of his chair like a plate she was serving him. "Read the number for me," she said. "I can't do it today." The apartment was one room with a curtain across the middle of it, and at 20 to 6 the only light came off the stove clock. Julian sat. He unfolded the clinic slip-along creases that had gone soft and furry from handling, and passed the split down the middle where she had taped it, and he read what he had already read 11 times that week. Balance owed $9,400. Morris Heights dialysis. And under that, in a box, the date they would take her name off the schedule and off the transplant list with it. 30 days, he said. 30. She pulled her cardigan closed at the throat. It was June. Did you eat? He did not answer that. He took his week out of his sock and counted it on the table where she could see him do it. In 5s and 1s, twice, because twice was the rule. $60 a shift. 3 shifts. He had done this arithmetic so many times, it no longer felt like arithmetic. It felt like a wall he walked into in the same place every morning. "That's a lot of money you're holding," she said. "It's $180, Ma." He folded the bills into the slip, and folded the slip into quarters, because that was where his money lived. He did not own a wallet. He owned a piece of paper with his mother's name printed across the top of it. She was watching him do it, with her hand over her mouth. 30 days is a lot of days, Ma. Go back to sleep." The envelope came out of Elder Jason's jacket at the service entrance, the way it always did. Low, at hip height, where the cameras above the door had nothing to look at. 60, he said. Julian did not count it in front of him. That was a different rule. Down the corridor a door opened, and Luke came through it with a phone against his ear, saying something about linens, and his eyes went over Julian the way eyes go over a mop bucket. Not unkindly. Just without arriving anywhere. Julian had worked in that building for 5 months. There was no badge with his face on it. There was no name of his on any sheet of paper anywhere in Manhattan, and no tax taken out of anything, and no supervisor who could have said his last name if you woke them up and asked. He liked it. It meant nobody could take it away by finding out about it. "Hey!" Elder Jason had stopped in the doorway. He pulled off one glove, looked at the palm of it, and put it back on. The pool floor upstairs. Towels, tiles, whatever they tell you. "And you don't go up there." "Yes, sir. I mean it. You leave the card at the elevator and you come back down." "Yes, sir." Julian crouched, pushed the folded paper into his sock, and pulled his sock up over it. The tape on his right sneaker had lifted at the toe again, and he pressed it flat with his thumb, knowing it would not hold, planning already for Thursday, when he would take another length off the roll under the sink at home. "Stay downstairs, son. Down here nobody has to decide anything about you." The towel cart was supposed to stop at the elevator, and it did not stop at the elevator. Julian pushed it out onto the roof at 7 in the morning, because in 5 months he had never once seen the top of the city he worked inside of, and because the attendant had not shown up, and because there was nobody up there. That was the part he checked. He checked it twice. The deck was empty, the umbrellas were still folded, and there was one woman doing lengths in the far lane with her hair flat and dark against her head, and she was nothing to do with him. He stacked towels. He was good at stacking towels. The sound that made him look up was not a splash. It was the absence of one. A rhythm that had been there for 4 minutes and then was not there. And when he turned around, the woman in the far lane had stopped swimming in the middle of the water. Her arm was moving wrong. Her head went under and came up facing the wrong way, and went under again, and she did not fight it. "Ma'am?" The water closed over her. He went in with his sneakers on. The pool was deeper than any water he had ever been in, and he was in it before he had decided anything, and she was heavier than anything he had ever carried, and she was still shaking, and her arms were locked. He got behind her the way nobody had taught him. He got her chin above the surface. He towed her the 11 feet to the steps with his own head going under twice, and he could not lift her out, so he dragged her, one step and then the next, until her shoulders were on the tile and her legs were still in the water and she was breathing, coughing, breathing. Then she came back into her eyes and saw a stranger, and grabbed him. Both arms around his neck, all of her weight against his chest, sobbing into the collar of a soaked gray t-shirt with her fists closed in the fabric of it, the way a person holds the last solid thing in the world. He was 12 years old. He put one hand flat on her back because that was what his mother did. Somewhere below them, a door banged open on the stairwell. "Ma'am," Julian said. "Ma'am, I have to let go now. Please let go." Elder Jason did not answer the question. He stood in the white gloves with his eyes on the tile 18 inches in front of his own shoes, and the pause went on long enough for the waiter to shift his tray to the other arm. "He doesn't need to answer," Shiley said. "I was here. I saw it with my own eyes." He was still shaking when he got home, and he talked the whole way through the door. About the blazer and the marble and 40 people looking, about a woman holding his mother's name up over her head, like something she had pulled out of a drain. Alejandra sat him down and put her hands around his hands and let him go all the way to the end of it. "And he'll fix it," Julian said. "He will. He's not like her. He's been teaching me the books on the roof after close, and he stayed late 4 times, and he paid the school, and he never even told me it was him. I just know it's him. And Ma," he stopped, because the next part embarrassed him. "He's the only man who ever asked me what I thought about anything. What's his name? He owns the whole hotel. Jose Daniel." The kettle was going, and she did not get up to move it. Her face did not do what he expected a face to do. It did not go shocked. It went still, the way water goes still, and he watched the stillness arrive and could not read one thing in it, and the kettle got louder, and she still did not get up. "Ma, sit down." "I'm sitting down." "Then keep sitting." She took the cardigan closed at her throat with one hand and reached for him with the other. "You asked me once when you were 7, and I told you he was gone. And that was true, and it was not the whole truth. And I've had 11 years to decide when I'd give you the rest of it. I'm not going to be the second person who lies to you this week." "Ma, what are you—" "Baby, Jose Daniel is your father's name." Masons opened the folder because she was entitled to it, and for no other reason. "You're the signing officer of the foundation," he said. "Every disbursement over $10,000 is yours to inspect on request. This is a request. I'd have preferred it in writing, but the bylaws don't require it." "Then don't prefer it. Open it." He opened it. Wire authorizations, clinic invoices, a school fee schedule, and underneath all of it, a laboratory report on 2 pages with a date stamped in the corner. And the date was the week of a red light on 5th Avenue. Emily read the top page twice. "Say what this is." "Your father instructed the check privately and instructed that the result be sealed. It arrived 9 days ago. He has not asked me about it since, which is its own kind of answer, and he has never once used the word in front of me." Masons squared the pages and did not sit back. "The other party is a minor, so the file stays here. You may read it, you may not remove it. Say what it is." "The minor is your father's son." "That's not my opinion. That's the result." Shiley had the executive floor doors open and did not care who was in the corridor. "Cut it off. All of it. The school, the clinic, the wires, today. And I want him off this property, and I want whoever let him back on it out of a job by 5 o'clock. "Shiley, do you know what people are saying downstairs? A 12-year-old in a $9,000 blazer walking through my lobby like, he is my son." The corridor stopped moving. 2 housekeepers with a cart, a man from accounts, Luke in the doorway with his hands empty. Julian just inside the room because Luke had brought him up, and Emily beside him with her bag still on her shoulder. Jose Daniel had said it in the first person. After 11 years of a friend of mine and a man I know, he had said it out loud in a room with staff in it, and having said it, he did not take it back or fold it in anything. "He's mine. His mother's name is Alejandra Yomi, and I left them in a room in the Bronx with a baby in a drawer, and I have paid for 11 years of it from behind a wall, because I was a coward, and I am still a coward, and the boy is still my son." Shiley laughed once, and it came out wrong. "With what money?" "Shiley? No, say it properly, since we're all being honest with the linen staff. With whose money? The hotel is mine. The building is mine. The accounts are mine. My father's name is on the deed, and you have been taking my money, and posting it to a woman in the Bronx. She turned to the room like a woman calling a vote. Is this a joke? Am I speaking to myself? Every dollar in this company came out of my family. Then take it, Julian said. Everyone looked at him. He had not planned to speak, and his voice went up in the middle. Take it back. All of it, ma'am. I'll pay the school back when I'm older. I'll pay the clinic back. I've got the number written down. He was not apologizing. That was the thing he would notice later, lying awake, that he had stood in a corridor full of adults and not said sorry once. Just don't say my mother's name like that again. Emily lifted her phone and turned it around so her mother could see the red dot. Keep going, she said. Put that down. Say the part about the linen staff again. Emily, put that down. The service door at the end of the corridor opened, and Elder Jason came through it in white gloves with a flash drive held out flat on his palm, and 34 years of keeping his head down ended in 9 steps across a carpet. He handed it to Emily. He did not say anything, because he did not have to. He had already said all of it at 11 o'clock at night in a room that smelled of burnt coffee. The screen on the wall was for revenue projections, and it played the rooftop instead. Gray footage. No sound. A woman going under in the far lane. A boy turning around and not taking off his shoes. Shyly watched her daughter drown. That's 40 seconds before you came through the door, Emily said. You saw 4 of them. You've had 3 weeks to ask me what happened, and you have never once asked me what happened. Her hand was steady on the phone. She did not touch her chin, not while the footage ran and not after it stopped. He didn't hurt me. He saved me. Say it again, Mother. The camera's still on. She was in the corridor with her bag, and she was walking, and she got 9 feet before she turned around. The foundation board meets Thursday, Emily said. I'm the signing officer, so I'll be tabling this, and Masons will be there with the file. Nobody's going to shout at you. It'll all be very polite. You'll be asked to step down from the seat, and you will, because the alternative is that everything in that folder gets read out loud by somebody who isn't your daughter. You'd do that to your mother. I'd do it to anybody. Shyly looked past her at the man she had been married to for 29 years, standing in an office with a boy's school bag on the floor beside him. And something happened to her face that nobody in that corridor had seen before, and nobody would see again. She put her sunglasses on, indoors. For the first time in the whole story, she brought them down off her hair and covered her eyes with them. And then she took the ring off her left hand and set it on the credenza by the elevator, without any ceremony at all, the way you put down keys. I'm your mother. Emily did not move. The elevator came. Shyly stepped in and turned around and put her hand out to stop the doors. And the last thing she said to her husband. Congratulations. That's 2 families you've lost now. Nobody's coming after me. Nobody did. The knock came on a Saturday, and Julian answered it himself. His father was on the landing with an envelope, thicker than the first one, and behind him on the stairs was Emily, who had waited 2 steps down because she had not been invited and knew it. I wanted to. Jose Daniel held it out. It's yours. It's a trust. It's set up properly. It's in your name and nobody can touch it. Not her, not the board, not me. Julian looked at it. He was 12 years old and he had counted every dollar that had come into that apartment since he was 8. And he knew to the cent what was probably in that envelope. And he knew exactly what it would have meant to the boy who stood on 5th Avenue with a squeegee in a plastic bag 3 weeks earlier. He put his hands behind his back. Ma says money comes and it goes, he said. She's said it my whole life and I never knew what she meant until this month. Alejandra was behind him in the doorway in her cardigan, and she did not say a word. You gave us money when you couldn't come. That's fine. That's what you had. But I don't want a man who pays for me. I already had one of those, and he wasn't here. Julian, I'm not mad at you. He said it plainly, and it was the promise on his mother's kitchen table being kept in real time, and only 2 people on that landing knew it. I'm not going to be mad at you, but you don't get to be my dad because you signed something. Then what do I do? Money comes and it goes. Keep it. Come Sunday instead. Don't be late. Emily came up the last 2 steps. Can I ask you something? She said. Not him. You. She had her hands in her pockets. I've got a brother. I found out on a Tuesday from a lawyer, which is a stupid way to find out. I'm not going to just start being your sister at you. She stopped and started again, shorter. Would you let me be? I'll take a no. He thought about it long enough for it to be real. Sunday, he said, you come too. The clinic waiting room on Tuesday had the same brown chairs it had always had. The woman behind the glass ran the account and turned the sheet around, and the balance line at the bottom read $0.00, and there was a stamp across the middle of it in blue ink, and Alejandra was back on the schedule for Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and back on the evaluation list she had been dropped from in the spring. She was not well. Nobody in that room pretended she was well. She was somewhere down a long list she could not see the top of. And she still wore the cardigan indoors, and she still could not climb the 5 flights without stopping at the 3rd, and what she had was a chair, 3 times a week, for as long as it took. Julian folded the sheet into quarters along the split where the tape was, and pushed it down into his sock. "You can put that in a drawer now, baby." "I know." "I was cleaning I brought the towels up," Julian said. "Sorry, she was in the water and she wasn't." "Sorry, ma'am. I'm sorry." 3 times. He apologized 3 times on that roof, and not one of the 3 was for anything he had done. Emily was upright now, wrapped in a towel somebody had finally thought to put on her, and her teeth were going. She said something with her father's name in it, and something about a doctor, and it came out in pieces, and her mother put a hand on her shoulder and steered her toward the door and away from the boy, which everybody present understood to be an answer. The guests watched him. The waiter watched him. He stood in the middle of a rooftop in a soaked t-shirt with pool water running out of a duct-taped sneaker, and he understood, in a way he would not have been able to put into words for another 10 years, that every person on that roof had already finished thinking about it. Shiley came back across the tile toward him and took her sunglasses off the top of her head and put them back. "Do you know who I am?" she said. "Do you have any idea who I am?" Luke's office was in the basement and had no window, and the second chair had a stack of folded aprons on it, so Julian stood. "There's no easy way to do this." "Yes, sir." Luke reached into his jacket for the pen he kept clipped there, and clicked it once. He did not write anything. He clicked it again. "He was up there," he said. "To Elder Jason. In the doorway. You were up there." "What did you see?" "He put his hands on my daughter." Shiley did not come into the room and did not sit down. She stood in the doorframe with her arms crossed. "Are we doing this? Am I speaking to myself?" Elder Jason looked at the floor. 34 years he had worked in that building. 8 months from the pension, Julian looked at him for 2 full seconds, and then stopped looking at him, and that was the last thing that happened between them for a long time. "A decision was made upstairs," Luke said. "It's been handled. There's no report, there's nothing on file, so this doesn't follow you anywhere. That's the best I can do for you." "Sir, my mother." "Kid." Julian bent down to fix his sock, and the folded paper came out of it, and landed open on the carpet by the leg of the desk, taped seam up, Alejandra Yomi printed across the top of it, in letters big enough to read from a chair. He went down on his knees and picked it up and folded it into quarters again with his hands shaking, and refolded it because the first fold was crooked. Nobody in that room looked at it. "A decision's been made. Go home, kid." He came home 4 hours early with his shoes still wet. Alejandra was at the sink. She turned around with a plate in her hand and read it all off him in one look, and did not ask a single question, and did not put the plate down. "They said I attacked her." "Did you?" "She was drowning, Ma." She went stiff and she went under, and there wasn't anybody else up there. His voice cracked in the middle of it. "She grabbed me. I didn't grab her. She grabbed me." "I know." "Then why?" "Because you were the only one in the room who couldn't cost them anything." She set the plate down at last. "Sit." He sat. 26 days on the paper in his sock and no shifts left to put against it, and he had already run the arithmetic on the train, and the arithmetic was finished. "Money comes and it goes," she said. "You hear me? That's all it does. It comes and it goes and it doesn't remember your name. What you are when you don't have it, that's the only thing you get to keep. I'm not going to be anything, Ma. I'm going to be a kid who got fired for Julian." She took his chin in her hand the way she had when he was 4. Her fingers were cold, indoors, in June. "Don't let what you feel turn into hate. Promise me you won't change." The same room, 11 years earlier, had the same brown stain spreading out of the same corner of the ceiling. There was a dresser drawer on the floor with a folded blanket in it, and a 1-year-old asleep in the middle of the blanket, and there was a man standing over it with his jacket already on, and it was 11 o'clock at night, and the light was behind him. "Say it then," Alejandra said. She was 23. "Don't stand there with your keys out, say it." "I'm tired of not knowing if you two eat tomorrow." "That's not tired, that's ashamed." "I'm tired of the crying." He did not look into the drawer when he said it. That was the part she would remember for 11 years. Not the sentence, the not looking. "I'm tired of all of it. A man can only—" Don't do a man can only. You're not a man in a story." He went to the door, and at the door he did what he had done every time he left that apartment for 2 years, which was to take a wedding ring out of his right-hand jacket pocket and slide it back onto his finger before he stepped into the corridor, where the world could see him. She watched him do it. She had never once asked him about it. That was her share of the thing, and she carried it. What do I tell him when he asks for you? The squeegee was on the glass before the light finished turning red. Julian had 90 seconds, and he used all of them, top left corner down, the way you do it if you want to be paid, and the black car with the rear windows up did not roll forward and did not honk, which meant somebody inside it was watching him work. He finished the windshield. He stepped back off the bumper into the gap between two lanes on Fifth Avenue, with the plastic bag hanging off his wrist and the dirty water running down his forearm into his sleeve, and he tapped one knuckle on the tinted rear window, twice, soft. $1, sir. Just $1. The window came down 4 inches and then all the way. Shiley had her sunglasses pushed up into her hair and did not put them on for him. No, she said, and I'll tell you why not, since nobody has. There are people in this city who get up at 5 in the morning and work and earn and pay for what they have. And then there are people who stand in traffic and take money from strangers, time from strangers. Do you understand the difference, or has nobody explained it to you? Yes, ma'am? Then step away from the car. What's the money for? That came from the other side of the back seat. A man in the corner of it, jacket off, no ring on his hand, a pale, unburnt band of skin where one used to sit. He had not moved and he had not raised his voice. It's not for me, sir, Julian said. It's for a bill. Everybody says that. I'm not lying. He said it fast, and then he did the thing he would spend a long time wishing he had not done. He crouched, pulled the folded paper out of his sock, opened it up, and pressed it flat against the outside of the glass so the man could read it through the window. It's real. Look, that's the clinic, and that's the number, and that's the day they stopped taking her. The man in the corner leaned forward. He put 2 fingers through the open window, and Julian let him take it. The light was still red. He read the balance, and he read the date, and then his eyes went up 1/2 inch to the name printed across the top of the sheet, and for 11 seconds, the man in the back of that car was not a wealthy man at all. His thumb moved once against the corner of the paper. He did not blink. Alejandra Yomi. Give it back to him, Jose. God. Shiley had her phone out. It's germs. It's a piece of... Give it back. He gave it back. That was all he did. He folded the sheet along the creases the boy had made and passed it out through the window into a 12-year-old's hand, and then took a bill out of his jacket without looking at which one it was, and passed that out too, and sat back. Thank you, sir. God bless you, sir. The window went up, the light changed. Shiley half turned in her seat with her mouth already open. Why do you care what a street kid's paper says? Nothing, Shiley. I wanted to know a little about his life. Drive. The office on the top floor had a wall of glass looking down on the park, and Jose Daniel stood with his back to it, which Luke had never seen him do. Get me Mason's on the phone. Luke dialed it and handed it over, and moved toward the door, and a hand came up to stop him. There's a minor, Jose Daniel said into the phone. Bronx, the mother's name I'll text you. I want the check run privately, and I want the result in a sealed file, and I want it dated. A pause. No. Nobody. Not her. Not the foundation, not the daughter. Another pause. Longer. Because a man in my position should know what he's dealing with before anybody else does. He put the phone down on the desk face down and left it there. A man I know, he said, made a mistake a long time ago and left it in a room and closed the door on it. And the mistake has been walking around this city for 11 years without shoes. Luke stood very still. He had run this hotel for 9 years, and he had fired a boy in his basement 4 days earlier, and he could feel the shape of the thing arriving in the room with him, and he understood it inside 90 seconds. The age, the borough, the pale band on the finger, the sealed file. He understood it completely, and he said none of it out loud. A situation like that, Luke said carefully, could be handled quietly. The employment could be restored. School could be paid for. Medical costs could be covered through the foundation without a name attached to them. And the party involved would never have to be told where any of it came from. Would that be enough? It would be something. It wouldn't be enough. Jose Daniel turned around from the glass at last, and the man Luke had worked for since 2017 looked like somebody's father, which he had never once looked like before. A friend of mine has 2 families. Tell me what my friend should do. He knocked on the door in the Bronx himself, which surprised her less than he expected. Alejandra stood in the doorway with her cardigan pulled shut, and did not step back to let him in, and behind her the room was one room, and the drawer was gone, and the stain on the ceiling had spread as far as the light fixture. He's at the store. I know. I waited. Of course you did. She looked at his hands. You waited 11 years. What's another 20 minutes? He had an envelope. He held it the way men hold envelopes when they have practiced the sentence that goes with it, and the sentence came out anyway. Doctors, real ones, a private clinic, a specialist, the arrears cleared by Friday, all of it, whatever it took. She took it out of his hand. She counted it in front of him, in 5s and 1s and 100s, twice, because twice was the rule, and he had to stand there and watch her do it. You think I'm going to refuse this, she said. You've been driving here telling yourself I'll throw it at you and you can go home clean. I'm taking it. I'm taking every dollar. And you're gonna hear why. Because you don't get to give it and drive away with it, meaning something nice about you. She squared the bills. It's not a gift. It's late. It's 11 years of Saturdays, and it's a hospital bracelet you never saw. And it's a boy who learned to count money before he could ride a bike. You don't get thanked for paying rent on a room you already lived in. Let me see him. Then see him. I can't. He set it to the doorframe. There's a house. There's a woman in it who signs everything, and a daughter who thinks her father is a decent man. If they find out he exists, they don't lose me. They take everything from him first, and I've watched her do it to people. So you'll pay for him from behind a wall. For now. Alejandra folded the envelope in half and put it in the pocket of the cardigan, and stood there in the doorway her son would come back through in 40 minutes. You want to fix everything with money, she said. Leaving is the only thing you know how to do. The money was on the table when he came in with the rice. Not folded, not in an envelope, just there. In a stack. More money than Julian had seen in one place in his life, and his mother sitting behind it with her hands in her lap doing nothing at all. Who? A man came. What man? A man who owed something to this house. He put the bag down. 19 days on the paper in his sock, and the stack on the table cleared it. And cleared it with room left over, and the thing that went through him first was not relief. He waited for the relief. It did not arrive. What arrived was hot and sat behind his eyes, and he could not have told anybody its name. I was going to get it, he said. Baby, I had it worked out. I had shifts. I had the whole thing worked out, Ma. And now some man walks up the stairs one time and... He stopped. He picked up one of the bills and put it down again, exactly where it had been. You know what this makes us? It makes us people who can pay the clinic on Tuesday. So we're not poor anymore, we're just bought. Luke came to the Bronx himself, which nobody had asked him to do. He came up 5 flights with his jacket over his arm and stood in a doorway too small for him, and he did not reach into his jacket for the pen once. Not at the door, not at the table, not when the boy's mother offered him a chair he did not deserve to sit in. I fired you, he said. I was wrong. I let a woman tell me what happened in a room I wasn't in, and I signed off on it because it was faster. And there's no piece of paper anywhere that says I did it, which I used to think was doing you a favor. Julian did not say anything. Your job's back if you want it. Same shifts, better money, and this time you're on the payroll with your name spelled right. He set a folder on the table, and there's a school, St. Aloysius, on the east side. Fees are covered through the end of high school and the uniform's covered, and it's not charity, it's already paid, it's done. It just needs a signature from your mother. Paid by who? By the hotel. The hotel doesn't buy anybody a school. Luke had spent 20 years learning to say a decision was made, and the sentence he needed now would not come out in that shape, so he stopped trying. I can't tell you that. I'm not allowed, and I'm not going to lie to you about being allowed. He stood up. At the door he turned around. I let someone else decide who you were. That's on me, not on you. The security office at 11 at night smelled like burnt coffee, and Elder Jason was already reaching for the drive before Emily finished asking. She had asked one question. What happened to the boy from the roof? 12 minutes past 7, he said. You want the whole thing, or you want the part they told me I didn't see? She sat down. 30 seconds of gray footage with no sound. A woman doing lengths in the far lane. A boy stacking towels with his back to her. The stopping. The arm going wrong. The head going under and not coming back the second time. And then the boy at the edge of the frame turning around, and not calling for anybody, and not taking off his shoes. Emily watched herself drown from above. She watched a child go into 11 feet of water in his clothes for a woman he had never met, and drag her by the shoulders up 2 steps he was not strong enough to drag her up, and get her breathing. She watched her own arms lock around his neck and hold on. She watched him take it. She watched her mother come through the door 40 seconds later and see 4 seconds of it. Play it again. He played it again. He was fired, Elder Jason said. Same morning, downstairs. No paper on it because there was never any paper on him. He took his glove off and pressed the back of his hand against his eyes and put the glove back on. 34 years I've worked in this building. 8 months from my pension. I stood right there and I let them say it. I've been waiting for somebody to ask me. Her father's office had a folder on the desk that Masons walked in, sat down and walked out of without saying a word to either of them. Slim, leather, closed. I pulled the foundation wires this morning, Emily said. I'm the signing officer, so I don't have to ask anybody's permission to look. And I looked. $61,000 out of the education account and the medical account since May. Clinic in Morris Heights, school fees on the east side, all of it to the same beneficiary. The foundation makes hundreds of... Alejandra Yomi. She let it sit. Who is she? He touched the pale band of skin on his finger with his thumb. He did it the way people touch a scar in a photograph. A charity case, he said. A woman a friend of mine knew years ago. She's sick, and she has a child, and there's nobody else. The folder was 18 inches from Emily's left hand. It stayed closed on the desk between them for the rest of the conversation, and neither of them touched it, and both of them looked at it exactly once. Emily put her fingers up to the small white scar on her chin. Okay, she said. That's kind. That's a kind thing to do. She stood up and got her bag and got to the door before she turned around. And her voice was the same flat, forward voice it had been all her life. Okay, say the name for me one more time, just so I have it right. The rooftop at night belonged to nobody, so that was where the lessons happened. 3 evenings, then a 4th. Occupancy sheets spread on a folded towel. What a room costs to clean and what it earns. Why the man who owns the building never argues about the price of anything in front of the person selling it. Jose Daniel taught it fast, and out of order, and too much of it at once, like a man teaching somebody to drive on the way to the hospital. You're 12, he said once. You shouldn't be able to read a payroll. I can read anything with a number on it. He knew. Julian never asked him. He worked the shifts and he wore the blazer to school, and he never once asked who was paying for the blazer, because there is a kind of poor, where you learn not to look directly at good luck in case it notices you looking. On the 4th evening, the boy folded up the occupancy sheet along the creases and sat with his arms around his knees at the edge of the roof where the city started. Can I say something and you don't make it weird? Say it. You're kind of like the dad I never had. Is that a weird thing to say? The man beside him did not answer for a long time. The lobby had 40 people in it at 3 in the afternoon, and Shiley's voice went across all of them. Where did you get that blazer? Julian stopped between the desk and the service door with his school bag on one shoulder, St. Aloysius crest on the pocket, gray trousers, the same white sneakers with tape on the toe because there had been no money for shoes and there had been no reason to ask. It's my school, ma'am. Your school. She came across the marble. Is this a joke? Do you know what that uniform costs? $9,000 a year plus fees. And you're standing in my lobby in it with a hotel bag over your shoulder. So it's stolen, or somebody's lying, and I'd like to know which. It's paid for, ma'am. By whom? I don't know. Nobody doesn't know. She had her hand out. What's in your hand? He closed his fist around it, and she took it out of his fist, and it came open in hers, taped and quartered and soft at the folds, with the money he had not yet put anywhere else folded inside it. Shiley held it up. This is what he is, she announced, to the desk staff, to the concierge, to Luke coming out of the office at speed, to Elder Jason in his white gloves at the door, to her own daughter standing 8 feet away with her bag still on her shoulder. A clinic bill and a handout, 9 days, it says. 9 days to find $9,400, and my hotel is apparently the one paying it. Emily did not move. She had read that name on a wire transfer authorization 4 days earlier, and she had stood in her father's office and let him look her in the face and call it a charity case, and now it was in her mother's hand in the middle of a lobby, printed across the top of a piece of paper, a 12-year-old kept his money in. Alejandra Yomi. Shiley read it out to the room like a verdict. Whoever that is, tell her my family is done paying for her. The rooftop at dusk was empty, and the door to it opened before he reached for the handle. Elder Jason held it with a gloved hand, white, laundered by hand in a sink in Queens, 8 months from a pension he had risked in a room at 11 o'clock at night, and somehow still had, and he stood back for a boy in a school blazer and a pair of duct-taped sneakers the way he had stood back for senators and film stars for 34 years, and he nodded, and he did not say anything, and he did not need to. Emily was at the edge of the water in the far lane, standing over the exact spot. I come up here on Fridays, she said. I don't get in. I just look at it. Julian sat down on the tile with his arms around his knees. She saw the paper when he shifted, the corner of it above his sock, taped and quartered and soft at the folds, and she almost said something about the balance being cleared, and then didn't, and asked instead, "Why are you still carrying it?" "I'm not keeping it for the number, I'm keeping it for the name,"